Alrighty, welcome everyone to the first virtual edition of the YSInspire conference. My name is Sean, and I'm super excited to be here with you all today. I know the rest of the YSI team is as well. We have a wonderful speaker who's literally changing the game when it comes to cancer treatment with her ferromagnetic therapy approach. So we're going to have some opening remarks. We're going to get right into it with Tasnia Nabil's keynote speech. Then we're going to have a fireside chat, which if you have questions for Tasnia, you can leave it down in the chat. And lastly, we're going to have a mini workshop and Among Us games. And so just letting everyone know this meeting is being recorded so we can post it to YouTube for everyone else to see. So without any further ado, we want to welcome you. My name is Sean. I am the co-founder with Thomas of YSI. And, growing up, I've done science fairs and I was really fortunate to see the opportunities that come out with that. And so Thomas and I, after, reaching the International Science Fair, realized that, not many people had the same opportunities that we had. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And that's why we started YSI. And Cyril's going to tell you a little bit more about what we do here.
Absolutely. So like Sean said, my name is Cyril. Pleased to meet you all. I'm studying engineering at McGill University, and I started, like most of the people here, in the science fair spectrum, surrounded by friends that I now keep around me, 3-4 years later. And so I'm director of outreach at YSI because what shocked me and what I'm keeping from all this science fair experience is the community that I've built around me, and it's the people that are now, complementing my life and adding to the value of all the experiences that I'm doing. And what I'm trying to build at YSI is this community of science fair students that want to have the same opportunities that we've had, and that want to collaborate in a way to make their projects and the collective science fair spectrum better. And we do these things, we build this community by doing multiple things. At YSI, we have this Inspire branch. And the Inspire branch essentially is divided in two. The first thing is that we organize talks in which we go to different schools in the greater region of Montreal, and we go talk to these students in their schools directly to tell them about these opportunities that the science fair provides, and in a hope to make more people know about this opportunity and grow this community by itself. Because it's one thing to have these opportunities and it's another to know about them. And I was lucky enough to figure out what was science fairs in my 2 last years of high school. But if I knew before, it would have been even better. And so these talks target directly students like you that might be interested in science fairs and to see how they can contribute. And then the second thing that we do is that we take this community that we build around the science fair and the knowledge of the science fair, and we use the brain power that it generates either in biosciences and engineering and math and computer science, and we take like large scale projects that would not be generally possible and make them possible with very little resources because of the general collective mind that is the science fair people. And for example, something that we did earlier this year, or actually last year, was the face shield initiative, where we realized, Sean, my friends, all of us here, that we were facing a shortage of PPE equipment, and we were reacting faster than the government because we were able to, use our brain power on a small scale, but collectively to make quick changes. And we were able to start producing from the get-go something like 200 face shields a week that we started providing to hospitals in the greater region of Montreal. And this ability to make a community and react fast to different problems that arise was really efficient. And we were for a while the sole provider of face shields for the Jewish hospital in Montreal. So to show you that what we're doing here is not only make a change, but we also implement it in a way that has real impacts. And another thing that we've done is with this same team, we had a bit extra time. We were like, we have people from computer side, we have people from mechanical engineering, we have people that, have various talents. And Sean here was working on the integration side on the patient because there was this shortage of ventilators as well. And so we figured that with our collective capacities, we could maybe make a DIY, easy to manufacture and easy to assemble ventilator. And so in the scope of 2 weeks, we were able to design, produce, and manufacture this ventilator and test it to be able to supply our plans to the Montreal General Hospital. And so these are the types of things that we do within YSI. And eventually we'll open up to the fellowship, and we'll open up to having people be mentored by our team of experts. But to give you an idea, as the director of outreach, those are the things that we've done in the past and that we're going to continue doing around this beautiful community, which is the brains of the science fairs. I'll now let Crystal take the lead.
Awesome, thanks. So my name is Crystal Verdinsky, and I'm really proud to be the Director of Operations at YSI. And I'm really excited to be able to present this platform to you guys because it's packed full of so many people that have literally advice of gold because they've been through, all the research aspects of science fairs and other types of conferences. And I wish I really had YSI and some sort of outlet like this in order to pursue my science fair adventures, because that would have saved me a lot of time and I would have had more friends to go through it with. But in terms of the work that I've personally done, I've worked on things such as isolating superbacteria from decomposing plastics at alarming rates to figuring out much improved screening tests for Alzheimer's disease. I might be a familiar face in Calgary Science Fair community. I've participated many times in the Calgary Youth Science Fair, the Canada-wide, and I was really fortunate to get to ISEF as well. My biggest takeaway from all of those experiences was the people and the memories that I got to make. But I can't wait to make more memories and get more involved in STEM with YSI. And one of our missions is to empower you guys. So we give you the tools and opportunities to discover and make the changes. And we've got two big outlets for that in the Empower pillar. One is the incubator and the other is our mentorship. The incubator is where every year we take 10 to 20 students annually with incredible projects and turn them into companies that improve lives and disrupt industries by the end of our 10-week program. The second one, our mentorship, you'll receive the one-on-one mentorship from industry professionals, researchers and startups to carry out your project and also get past the science fair Death Valley. So I'll pass that on to the next person.
Hi, everyone. So I'm glad you can make it to our first conference. I'm Thomas, and along with Sean, I co-founded YSI, Young Scientists and Innovators. Currently, I'm working at a startup that's focused on building a portable human brain imaging scanner. And through YSI, I'm hoping that I will share with you some of my experiences and some of the knowledge and skills that I've acquired over the years in hopes of helping you develop your next big ideas. So one of our pillars at YSI is to promote STEM. We believe that any great idea, no matter how creative and out of the box, will greatly benefit from a strong foundation in STEM. And through our fellowship program, we hope to bring to you some of the most influential Gen Zers around the world to talk about these subjects and also to apply them each year to solve a new and pressing global issue. So I'll pass you on to the next speaker.
Hi, my name is Deeksha. I'm a grade 11 student from Niagara, and my research has been focused on making a plant growth enhancer and enhancing the efficiency of dye-synthesized solar cells. At YSI, I am the graphic designer, and through science fairs, I've been able to reach out to different mentors and people to help expand my thinking and knowledge, and I hope to do the same with YSI. And now on to Ronnie.
Hi guys, my name is Ronnie. I am a second-year student at Concordia University, currently studying in kinesiology and clinical exercise physiology. And from a young age, I've always wanted to understand the whys and the hows of the human body, the cells, the anatomy, and the physiology that is encrypted in the humankind. I've therefore developed a passion for research and continuously worked hard to strive and achieve my goals and better understand the humankind and advance the medical realm, which is why I'm currently studying kinesiology, and I also joined YSI. In fact, after having met with Sean, I learned a lot about science fairs and many other STEM organizations. I came to realize that I've never been informed about such opportunities and experiences, which really bothered me, and wanted to change that for the next generation, which is you guys. So learning about YSI and their goal, I strongly believe that together we can inspire, empower, and promote the young people of today to find sustainable solutions for the world's most pressing issues. By working together and giving the youth the necessary utilities to change the world of tomorrow. I will now let Sean take over and introduce our amazing speaker. Thank you, guys.
So I am super pumped for this part. I think this is the main part of our conference that we're all super excited for. Tasnia Nabil is a third-year student at Western University studying medical biophysics, and she's known for her cancer research on ferromagnetic nanotherapy. She has received international accolades for her research from various competitions, including the Canada YSInspire Fair, Intel ISEF, and the Sanofi Biogenius competition. Tasnia is also a science advocate and is a passionate about youth involvement in the STEM fields. With an insatiable curiosity, Tasnia hopes to inspire change in the world one day and believes youth innovation paves the road for that progress. I've had the pleasure of presenting alongside her at some Canada-wide science fairs and even at conferences at Harvard University. So without any further ado, please welcome Tasnia.
Thank you for that great introduction. Awesome. So I am so excited to talk to you guys today. And I would like to start off by taking you back to the early 2000s or early 90s, or whenever you Gen Zers and millennials were born. I'd like to take you back to the time that you were born. The first thing you do when you enter this world is ask, who are these strangers holding me? What is that bright thing that's blinding me? You entered the world with a trait that helped you grow into the person you are today. That is your curiosity. I, like many of you, was born with an insatiable curiosity, always searching for explanations and wondering what would happen if I did this, or what would happen if I did that. That may or may not have led me to almost burn down the room that I'm sitting in right now, but we don't need to get into that. Curiosity is what led me to research in the first place. From the age of 6, I was obsessed with renewable energy because I was worried that global warming is a pressing issue in our world. And that led me to do some research on photovoltaic technology. At the age of 13, I discovered nanotechnology, and I was completely blown away by its multimodality and vast applicability. At the same time, I had no idea what this disease called cancer was, or why it was affecting so many lives. If you had asked the question that I had asked that day, I would probably laugh in your face, but the question still holds true. Why isn't there a cure yet? After a quick Google search combining nanotechnology and cancer, I came across a treatment called magnetic fluid hyperthermia, which uses magnetic iron oxide nanoparticles that are controlled by an external alternating magnetic field to heat up and destroy cancer cells without harming healthy cells. This is a very promising treatment as it is minimally invasive and it has little to no side effects. However, it is still not being used in routine clinical applications today. And the reason for that is because of the lack of research in the engineering behind the therapy. So the big question is, we don't exactly know how to optimally generate the heat required to kill the cancer cells in the body. Now, I am an optimistic dreamer, and I believe that every problem has a solution. So I took it upon myself to solve this treatment by combining my favorite things, engineering, physics, biology, and my passion to hopefully save the world someday. And I created what I call Ferromagnetic NanoTherapy, a novel computational simulation tool that helps the physician to optimize the treatment parameters and finally, for the first time, be able to visualize the heat generation of the nanoparticles through a simulation model. This simulation tool was the missing step in progressing magnetic fluid hyperthermia into routine clinical applications. Now, as exciting as doing such revolutionary research was, I was still in high school. Balancing research and schoolwork is not easy. And if I'm being honest, none of it absolutely none of it was easy. Most people don't get into research or even know what the word means until they start their undergraduate or master's degree. Being 13 years old, it often took me 7 or 8 tries just to get through one journal paper. I was trying to learn differential equations when I still didn't fully comprehend how quadratics work. I was working in a lab at the age of 15 with renowned scientists much older than me who were probably wondering, why is this little kid here? I was scared of failure every step of the way. As a young scientist, I felt the pressure that I had to be perfect in everything I do, or else no one would ever take me seriously. When I first entered a real research laboratory, I was terrified that I would get kicked out for not being good enough or wasting cancer cells on the failed experiments. At science competitions, I was completely dejected when I didn't get the medal I wanted. Did that mean that my research was invalid? All of these failures led me to believe that I myself was a failure, and that hit me really hard. There were times where I felt so dejected I could not even move out of my bed. But that was the wrong mentality. Failure is an integral component of progress. If anything, I call failure my best friend because it is always leads to opportunities to learn, to ask what went wrong, how can I improve? If I had let all these failures discourage me, I would not be here today talking to you. No matter how deep of a hole I've been in, I've always had a sliver of hope that kept me going. And that was my curiosity. A funny story is that once I was competing at a science competition and I had completely botched my presentation in front of esteemed researchers and I was ready to leave, go home and cry. I did not want to go to the award ceremony knowing I had completely failed. But once I stepped my foot out the door, a question came up into my mind and I'm like, I wonder who did win. It ended up being me. But the story here is not that winning isn't everything. In fact, it is the opposite. Gold medals, awards, recognition, none of these were the reason I kept going on my journey as a young scientist. It was the raw passion of wanting to expand my knowledge, even if I was wrong, that kept me going. The highlight of my journey as a young scientist was meeting students from across the world who had crazy inventions and discoveries ranging from autonomous cars or curing Alzheimer's disease. And the best part was that they all had shared the same desire to solve problems and make the world a better place. My biggest inspiration are the students around me who share the same crazy passion for discovery and thirst for knowledge. I am now in my 3rd year of my undergraduate degree studying medical biophysics, a field I didn't know existed until I started my research when I was 14. I chose my program because I believe that physics holds the answers to problems in medicine we previously thought were impossible to solve. But I'm not done on my journey yet. I'm just beginning. I know so many people around me who are so focused on a specific little niche of research where they will only study this one thing and one thing only for the rest of their lives. But that's not what I want to do. I want to explore engineering, philosophy, literature. I want to learn everything there is about the universe, which I know is impossible, and knowing me, I'm the biggest procrastinator in the world, so probably not achievable. But the interdisciplinary sciences was pioneered by someone who I think thought that what if we combined these 2 fields, these 3 fields? What if? That is my favorite question in the world. What if? It unlocks doors to answers we've never been able to see before. And I believe that it's the childlike curiosity that got us here in the first place. The young mind is capable of coming up with the craziest ideas that adults sometimes never have even considered. I would like to think that I am still a child and I don't want to grow up because nothing is more powerful than youthful curiosity. There are 5 great forces in the universe: strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetic force, gravity, and curiosity. Every idea is worth pursuing, no matter what your background or your age is. There is no better feeling in the world than being able to contribute an idea you get to call your own, no matter how big or small it is, to a large network of scientists, of people across the world. Never let anyone or anything stop you from pursuing your ideas. You don't always need a fancy lab. I started my research in my basement with a nanoparticle stained lab, like ping pong table as my lab bench, and using Google for all my crazy questions. You don't need to have everything together. Perfection is not the goal. I've never had everything together, and frankly, I still don't. It is the curiosity of what will happen today, the next day, that usually gets me out of bed. If we use Alice in Wonderland as an example, if you are Alice, the ideas are represented by the rabbit. Follow your ideas, and you will go down a crazy, endless rabbit hole. Now, you may not find the next cure for Alzheimer's down there immediately or even at all, but that is not the point. The journey of following your questions that leads to more questions, that is how we were born to ask about the world around us. I know a lot of you feel like you are excited to grow up, to be an adult, to discover CRISPR or whatever the next CRISPR is when you're 40. But why wait? Start now. Ask questions now. There is no limit to creativity and imagination. I would say sky's the limit, but Elon Musk has proved that wrong, so really there is no limit. Curiosity never killed the cat. It led it down to the beautiful, magical wonderland of what ifs. And if I leave you with anything here today, I hope you can ask yourself a what if question every single day. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Tasnia.
Thank you so much, Tasnia. Very well said.
I don't know if it's just me, but I get like goosebumps every time I hear her speak, either her research or her talk. So next up, we're going to have a fireside chat with her and ask her a bunch of questions, both serious and some goofy. But if you guys have questions for her, you can drop it in the chat or use the raise the hand feature to ask her directly right now. So I'll give you 30 seconds if you have anything. If you're thinking of something, while we're talking during the fireside chat, just put it in the chat box, and I'll ask her. So yeah, let's get started, Tasnia. So awesome. I know that you've done tons of projects, and I know everyone starts somewhere. So I'm curious as to what was your first project that you did in science fairs?
My first science fair project. I'm really sad that they wouldn't let me do science fairs when I was 6, because that's when I discovered science fairs. But the minimum age was 9. So my first science fair project at 9 years old was a sustainable house, where I built a house and put grass on the roof. And I'm like, hey, it's sustainable. It works. That's my first research project.
That's a solid project. I mean, like, it's funny to see like all these big people winning all these big science fairs, and then you find out what their first project was, and you'll be like, what on earth is this kid thinking? Like, I did like a hockey. What was my first?
I love your first project.
It was hockey sticks. And my second project was titled "What the Puck Is This?" So not the flex, but I think that was the best science fair title out of everyone. Considering that you talked about your incredible research, but what prompted you to get involved in the first place? Like what inspired you to do that project?
That project or research?
Sorry, like your last science fair project.
Oh, my last science fair project. It really was not knowing what cancer was. Like, I genuinely did not know what the disease was and why it was so prevalent in the world. And previously, the year before, I had done a project where I used nanoparticles to enhance the performance of solar water heaters. So I was really obsessed with nanoparticles, and I really wanted to apply to the medical field. And not knowing what cancer was, I'm like, maybe I should apply it to this area. And that's where it went.
I don't know what cancer is. I just want to treat it. That's a good goal.
I wish, like, that's actually what I said.
That's pretty much what happened. So considering science, I know like amongst us and a lot of our friends, we've had some pretty interesting experiences, funny experiences, and you've been to science fairs around the world, Miss Team Canada, science fair person. So what has been the most funny? You know, I think I asked everyone this during our lives. You know, what has been the most whack, funny experience you've had in science fairs?
There have been many.
I know it's a hard question.
Well, okay. I think one of my favorites was actually, no, two of my favorites. One of them was a judge coming up to me and being like, "Oh, I thought you were shorter. You look shorter in your picture." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." But in grade 9 at the Canada-wide Science Fair, I was sitting at like the lunch table, and there was this person sitting next to me from, I think, Newfoundland, and he was ranting on me like, "Oh my goodness, there's this girl who created this mathematical model for cancer. It was really cool. Like, have you seen the project?" And I'm like, "I don't think I have. Don't know what you're talking about." But it was very interesting to hear him talk, boast about my project.
It's funny you say that because I remember in grade 9, we were diagonal, like at nationals. This was in Fredericton. We were diagonal from each other. And I was just scared. Like I think Crystal felt the same way. We were just like scared to even approach you. We're like, this person's a genius. Like we're not worth her attention. So I would probably be that same Newfoundland person. No, I think
funny.
amongst our friends we have like crazy stories. Yeah.
It was funny because I was sitting with Marcus Deans at that time, who won platinum that year, and they were ranting about my project instead of his when he was sitting right next to me. So I found that hilarious.
Well, he still won gold, so he didn't do too much better than you. That's pretty funny. So, you know, going on to more serious things, we're people of science, but I think it's also important to be, you know, a social, like a global citizen. And, you know, with everything that's going on right now, we are living in the midst of this pandemic of systemic racism, injustice, and inequality. And the world is finally demanding, you know, it be, you know, eradicated, rightfully so. And I'm wondering your take on, you know, how do you deal with these problems in these chaotic times? Because although we are people of science, it's really important to be engaged with kind of activism and issues, you know, especially now with like people of color. And so how do you deal with these issues while being, you know, a woman in STEM?
I think the best way to start off is with what a Harvard professor once told me when I asked them a question about public health and how we should talk about science to the public. And they were like, lower your ego. And I find that, I'll reword it, but I feel like it's a great way for leaders to go about these problems is educate yourself. First, there's like in the age of social media, we have so much information spreading around, some of them sometimes fake news. And the most important thing we need to do is educate ourselves on systemic racism, on global warming, on issues that impact us. Even if we're like in like 10 to 20 years old, these will impact us in the future. And I feel like the first thing to do is education and then spreading awareness about the facts and not the false lies that are sometimes out there.
I like that. No, I think what that Harvard prof said is very valid in a lot of the things that are happening today. And I know a lot of people are trying to solve these big issues, these problems that they're passionate about, which is, you know, the topic of our kind of workshop that we're going to do later on in the conference. But I'm wondering your take on how can young people, if whether they're working on problems with environment, healthcare, how can they I guess, create a better future for humanity in these I know it's a vague question, but what's your take? Because you've done an incredible job in doing that as a teenager in high school. So I want to know what your tips are for people trying to do similar things and working on these problems.
Honestly, don't be afraid of having everything ready before starting your project. The number one thing is to ask questions and find answers. And I feel like Google personally is my best friend. PubMed could be your best friend, but it's the questions that matter most and where you go from those questions that matter most. So you don't need to find the perfect lab. You don't need to find the perfect project idea. You don't need to find any idea to begin with. Just find something you're passionate about, you're curious about, and go Google it. And you never know where that will lead you. And especially in a global pandemic, I know it's extremely difficult to reach out to labs if you want to do like potential research projects. But I have found throughout my years that there is always a way around working in a research lab. So there's a lot of at-home ways you can still save the world.
I like that. And I think that's kind of goes on to a question we had in the chat from Cyril, where you're doing these incredible stuff while in high school, but that's not what a normal teenager does. And Cyril's question is, how do you manage your dual life of research and pursuit of scientific passions and enjoying your youth? Because this is like a big topic in terms of like now with burnout and like a lot of young people in STEM. What is your take on how do you manage your time in these two regards?
I'm not gonna lie, burnout has definitely happened so many times. It happens to everyone, it happens to the best of us, and it's okay. I think the big thing to know is that you can bounce back. And balancing is kind of hard. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know the answer. If someone knows the answer, please put it in the chat. But throughout high school, especially, I remember in class, I would be working on my mathematical project instead of doing math on the board. Or I'd be like, hey, sorry, I didn't do the homework. I was too busy doing a cancer killing machine, which wasn't a valid excuse, by the way. It didn't work. I still had to do my homework. So in terms of balancing, that requires a lot of discipline and a lot of time management. In terms of enjoying my youth, honestly, through science fairs, I know it seems very daunting with all the research that you're doing, like this high level educational stuff, but meeting the people across the world, science fairs are not just about research. We have the littiest parties probably across any other competition. So I don't think it took away anything from my youth.
That's a good note, because I think you touched upon it earlier. The community you get is, I think, truly the most important part of doing science fairs or hackathons, and having that sense of community. Like you said, there are some crazy, like I've had like videos of like at ISEF. You would think I'm at a club, but this is like a dance party at science fair. And I think having, when I first started science fairs, when I was like, the first time I went to national, I was like, dude, this week is gonna suck. There's a bunch of nerds, blah, blah, blah. But these people work hard, but play harder. And I think, like you said, you don't lose anything from your youth, being involved with that. But I think the community is something that should be highlighted. And that's something we're trying to create at YSI, where we have incredible people all trying to do the same goal, and it's really this shared community. And we're actually gonna be opening a Slack next week, so you can stay tuned for that. We're gonna definitely send the link to join to everyone who's watching, or you can get that through our website, of really building and fostering a community of change makers. And so I'm wondering, we discussed your most funny experience from science fair, but what has been a moment where you're just standing there and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I know you've presented your project to, the JT himself, Mr. Justin, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau. But like, is there been a moment, like another moment where you're just like, what the heck? Like, that science fair has got you?
Definitely meeting Justin Trudeau was an incredible moment. I was fangirling because Dr. Arthur McDonald, one of the Nobel laureates in physics, was also there. And he's like, hey, I see you used ANSYS for your simulations. I'm like, oh my goodness, you know ANSYS? And we had a full-on like fangirl conversation about the same software that we use. Another favorite part of mine was when I was at the International Biogenius competition in San Diego, California. The judges were like super high level judges. And one of the judges came from the same place that supplied cancer cells to my lab. And I was mind blown that like you gave me the cancer cells to do my research. That's pretty cool. So that was my geekiest moment.
That's crazy. Not to flex, but I know you had these crazy judges, but have you ever had a judge that's fallen asleep while you're presenting? Because that's happened
I've
to
had
me.
judges being confused. That's definitely
Okay,
true.
but like so like confused and bored that they fell asleep. That happened to me in Taiwan. The judge literally walked around with a stool. Like it's like, I don't know if you remember at ISEF, there's like this old man from Taiwan who walks with a cane onto the stage. He gives like the award to go to Taiwan, but I was presenting to him and he fell asleep during my project, and I'm just like, well, I'm definitely not
That
winning this. Why did it? This was horrible. But
you definitely did not win
yeah,
that science fair, did you?
I know. No. Um, we have a question in the chat from Ronnie, which I'm actually very curious. And considering you have a younger sister, I think this is a very important question that she probably has an answer to. What would be your best advice to your younger self? And this was asked from Ronnie.
Well, my sister is in this call, so listen up. Um, honestly, don't be scared to fail. I know I have let a lot of opportunities slip through my fingers because I was scared that if I didn't do it perfectly, I don't deserve to do it at all. So, not being afraid of failure and seizing every opportunity is integral to achieve what I want to achieve. And I kind of had some regrets of not like seizing the day when I could have seized the day in fear, out of fear of not being good enough. But that's not the case. You got to try. And that's the most important message I have for anyone, like in grade school, high school, wherever you are in life, just try.
Carpe diem. That's the only thing I know of
Yes.
mine. Um, you've worked on insanely highly complex projects in high school. How did you go about learning like the nits and grits? I know you said Google is your best friend, but like, would you just go on Google? Would you email a bunch of profs? What did you do to kind of make a name for yourself in the space of ferromagnetic therapy?
Honestly, when I say Google is my best friend, I stand by Google as my best friend. I got a lot of research articles through Google, which helped me understand the therapy, understand cancer, understand everything that I need to know about the theory. In terms of my simulation model, I had actually taken this online course by edX. They offer free like courses, university level, and they had one on ANSYS. I'm like, very interesting. I might as well use this and learn. And I also had my supervisor in my lab when I was working with cancer cells because I had no idea how cancer worked. I did not understand mitosis until like university or like how cancer worked with that. So definitely having a network of professionals to consult was very important because as a kid, it's very difficult to know differential equations or know how a nanoparticle even works. So that's very important.
That reminds me, I was reading an article about you, and they quoted your lab mentor And I don't know if you remember what this lab mentor said about you, but she said you were the brightest person to ever walk into her lab. And how old were you then? Like you were in grade 11, grade 10.
15, grade 10.
Damn. So you like you must have insulted those PhD students after this article came out. Like, imagine getting like your PI in your PhD says in public news that some 15-year-old is the brightest person in the world. Anyways, I would be insulted if I was a PhD, but you know, that's my friend. So we have a question from Crystal, which I'm actually very curious about. If you could pursue another field in you know, in life and, you know, for your job, what would it be?
Okay, well, I can say engineering because technically I'm in biomedical engineering, which
That doesn't count.
I'm in, so it doesn't count. I would probably go into literature. I'm a huge fan of writing. I love creative writing and English. Despite hating it throughout high school, I found a newfound passion for it. So that's
You're really good at it.
else.
That's
Debatable.
a plug. That's a plug. Tasnia has a blog. Wow, she plugged herself, guys. That's crazy. Or she was just setting it up for me to plug it. But I'm gonna plug it. What's the link? What's the link?
So drop the link in the chat.
Drop the link in the chat.
Tasnia.com. I'm dropping the link.
Yeah, please. Okay, go check it out. This blog is actually fire. And like, yeah, ad. Are we being sponsored? Are we being paid to say it? No, but we're not paying our speakers, so it's equal.
Yeah, it bounced up.
No, but actually, like reading some of your work, I've read a few of your pieces, and especially your blog. You're an amazing writer, so I think you'd be perfectly suited for that. So I'm looking forward to your next blog.
You are too kind.
I know. What can I say? Diksha has a question, which I need to learn from you, I think. How do you deal with other judgments or lack of support of your research when people are like, this is never gonna work, blah blah blah? Like how do you deal with
that? Now probably better than what I did during science fairs. I remember like when I did get into an argument with a judge quite a few times. It was pretty heated. Everyone in my row was really concerned, but
so you didn't lower your ego according to that.
I did not lower my ego. I think the biggest thing is lowering your ego. It applies here too. People will not always understand what you're doing, and sometimes people are more knowledgeable about what you're doing, and despite it is being your project, there's always something more to learn, or maybe something that someone didn't understand. So I think for me, one of the biggest like realizations I had, especially coming to university, is that you are not like the queen of science, like the Queen of England. Not everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah, I get what you mean. So you really have to learn how to lower your ego and accept that some people won't appreciate your work, and that's life.
Haters are gonna hate. Haters are gonna hate. Yeah, you're not the Queen of England, but you know, we can argue and petition to vote that you are the Queen of Science there, because you have literally done it all. Yeah, that reminds, like arguing with a judge. I remember at ISEF, a judge argued with me saying, she came to my booth, she didn't want to listen to my project, and she's like, you come here and you don't patent or publish your work, I could take a picture right now and steal it. And that was the whole we had a whole argument about this during the whole, like for 20 minutes, and people around my booth were just like, similar to you, were just like, what is going on here? Like I was heated. And I think that's really important. Like no matter, I think it can come harder on a person, like especially like a student when trying to do research, when they're not being supported by the people in power meaning like the PhDs, the PIs. And I think there's a difference when dealing with that and a difference when dealing with your peers, where your peers are just like, haters are going to hate. But when it comes from, an older, like a person who's respected in the field, that can hit different. And, in one sense, you said it, you should lower your ego, but in another sense, you should be confident in what you're doing. In my research, I was doing trying to find a way to detect Alzheimer's disease. And I remember walking out of a potential PI, and I was literally about to cry. This man went through my 5-page research proposal, went through each sentence, and was just like, this is why it won't work. This is why it won't work. I'm not going to drop his name because can't do him like that, but it ended up working. I found it different labs, and I think there's a fine line that people should notice, that you should lower your ego and whatnot, but you should also be confident in yourself, especially when you're doing things that are not being done today. That's how science is being brought forward, and we're seeing breakthroughs. So I think depending on the situation, you should be confident and have an ego in a sense. So yeah, no, I really like your take on that. On the topic of PIs, who has been your biggest role model in this? I think role models are so important, whether it be Elon Musk or Chris Hadfield. I know everyone especially in the science fair and hackathon space, have the specific role model. Who is that to you?
Mine's fictional. I've always looked up to Tony Stark because he innovates for the sake of inventing. He doesn't care about, he cares about the rest of the world, but his biggest passion is having a laboratory in his garage and building whatever crazy idea comes to his head, because nothing is too crazy for Tony Stark. And I'd like to be like that in terms of having both the garage of robots and also all his cars, because we know he's sponsored by Audi. But yeah, I would love to just build for the sake of building and use my brain as my superpower to be a superhero in this world.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, no, I don't know. I honestly don't know who my role model is. I think it would definitely be Chris Hadfield or Elon Musk. Elon Musk is changing the game. This guy, absolute beauty and a half. Yeah, Crystal, no one supported Elon, but now look at him. That's very much facts. Fun fact about Elon, on the topic of, since Tasnia is Canadian, she's from Ontario. Elon Musk decided to go to Queen's over University of Waterloo because there were more girls at Queen's. I just thought that would be a fun fact for you, because I know you were so curious. We talked about burnout, and I think that's a big topic. That's prevalent in a lot of young people in science fair. But has there been a moment of intense adversity? What's been the biggest adversity you've had to face in your young age in research that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
I remember during my science fair career, I had applied to represent Team Canada at ISEF, and I was disqualified from being considered for Team Canada because of something I had written in my report. And I was so absolutely dejected. I did not want to do my research anymore. I didn't care anymore. I was just like, it's done. It's done. I'm done for. I can't do it. But like I said in my talk, it was the curiosity that kept me going. And that ended up being one of my favorite years of science fair ever. So.
And that year you did go to nationals and you won gold.
Yes, and I also went to Biogenius and won
and Biogenius, and you won there too. So you did become an international, champion. So that's a big flex. I'm curious. Was it about animal safety that you were rejected?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. If you want to go to Team Canada ISEF or any ISEF, listen here, folks. You can't use any animal models. It was funny because I had that same issue where I said something about needles, and like I have another friend like that the same thing happened. He got so much trouble where he wrote something about needles and rats buttholes, and he was at the competition and he had like a whole day of just arguments with one of the people the safety people, and he was at the science fair in your year, Pittsburgh. Did you go Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Yes, this was your year. And Crystal. So yeah. So guys,
dear.
really don't deal with rats. And kind of building up on that of you overcoming and actually doing an incredible project, what can more young people do if they want to solve a problem that's meaningful to them and they just have an idea? You know, what does it take?
Well, the fact that you have an idea in the first place is huge, and the willingness to continue with your idea is also very important. The passion and determination is really, I feel like, what keeps all of us going, because there are setbacks and we just got to be passionate about what we do to keep following the idea. But definitely reach out. Like, the world is here to help you. No one's going to shun you for having an idea, for being curious. Reach out to maybe a professor or someone, an expert in their field, or maybe just any person you can find around you who knows somewhat about what you want to pursue. And that, it's just a stepping stone. It's a ladder, and you keep climbing from there.
I like that. And you're currently studying medical biophysics. You're going to be done soon. What is your future plans? I know this is a big topic on a lot of us people who's graduating soon. I know I have no clue what I want to do, funny enough, but I'm curious, what are your future plans, if you have any?
I was set on clinical research, and now I really want to pursue a more of a Tony Stark approach, where I want to build technology for the medical field. So hopefully maybe like a PhD in engineering or biomedical engineering is hopefully what I see in the future.
When you say that we should join forces, you know, I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. We've had that like discussion, but I think in recent years I really want to be the Elon Musk of translational medicine. I think that would be just sick. Maybe not, you know, go into all the unethical stuff, but you know, it can definitely be done. You know, we should start like a firm or something of just like Stark Industries, but like our version. So if you want to invest, guys, we're accepting sponsors. Maybe your blog can sponsor us.
I'll post an ad on my blog to invest
perfect.
in our joint company.
Awesome. Yeah, ad 2.0. Let's see how many ads we can get in this conference. I've seen you win incredible awards. I keep on bringing it up because I'm flexing for you, and I know you wouldn't do that. You've presented at Harvard. You've done all these TEDx speaker, what all, like you've done it all. Okay, we get it. But what has been your proudest moment? Whether it be an accomplishment or just finally having something work in the lab, like what has been your proudest moment?
Honestly, my proudest moment has been finishing my project. That is the best feeling in the world, when you like submit the 5-page report, you're done everything. Or especially like after judging day. I remember after judging day at International Biogenius or at ISEF, like my childhood dream, and I had just finished presenting my research to these crazy people I look up to. Couldn't have been more proud of myself for getting through it.
Yeah, I think that's, if you ask any like people who won hackathons or science fairs, like you would think that it's like an award they won, but it's really just like getting something to work. Or, you know, we asked the same question to Brendan. He was like, finally getting my car to drive autonomously. So I think that's like an interesting theme we see throughout like these crazy influential Gen Zers. It's really getting something to finally work. Or like, especially when there's like a personal connection involved, I think like that's like the best feeling. So yeah. And besides your proudest moment throughout your journey, what has been 3 key learnings? We've already, like, you touched upon this in your talk, but like for people to specifically, if they didn't catch that, what are 3 or 2 key learnings you've had throughout your journey?
Don't be afraid of failure is number 1. Keep trying and believe in yourself, because it is really hard to believe in yourself when you are so young, exploring a field dominated by people so much older than you, with so much more knowledge than you. So you really have to believe in what you're doing and just keep going.
I like that. I think that's the most important. I always say, you know, just getting started and you know, be in the now, start simple. Like that's the key. And I know it's cliche to say, but you know, once you practice that and you've done it a couple of times, I think it becomes way easier to kind of see in your workflow. And so for my last question for you is, if you can leave the audience with one piece of advice to take forward, what would it be?
Ask yourself a what if, and then continue down that rabbit hole with that what if and see where it leads you.
Preach.
That's your homework.
That's a wonderful way to leave it off. Thank you so much, Tasnia. I think I learned a lot, and I know a lot of people who are watching this and who are going to watch this in the future feel the same way. So thank you so much. If you want to keep updated with her, you should definitely follow her on Instagram and her blog. Come on, that's our 3rd ad of the day. So yeah, drop your clap reactions, your heart reactions. That was incredible. So thank you so much, and we look forward to being updated by you. And we're gonna need you on one of our lives in a bit. On one of our YSI lives. Awesome. So take care, and we thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, that was an incredible talk from Tasnia. If you're curious of who our second speaker is, it'll be on March 7th at 3 p.m. We're having another ISEF award winner, Brian Wu. He's an absolute stud, just like Tasnia, but he's doing stuff in like the rocket space. Like, this man found a planet with 2 suns. If you have a friend who did that, I don't know, but he's the only guy I know who's done that. That's like some Tatooine type stuff. So next up, we're going to have a mini workshop on kind of finding your purpose. I think we were talking to Tazi and how she does these incredible stuff, rightfully so. And like, cancer is one of these things where it's affecting so many people. We have these personal connections all over. But I think what's most important of instead doing these incredible research projects that people would initially think to do. If you're just getting science fairs, you're thinking of, I want to do the biggest thing that will get me the awards. But I think if you ask anyone, especially people on the YSI team, I think finding a purpose and tackling a problem that you're truly passionate about is what's most important, especially in today's age. I think this is primordial. You know, we're living in a time of rebirth and peril. You know, the global warming is getting worse in some parts of the globe. Like I said, we are living in the midst of this global pandemic of systemic racism and inequality. And this has survived and thrived for many hundreds of years, but it's finally being demanded to be eradicated. And so, you know, along with other things, I think it's easy to look at the world around us and be pissed off, be angry, and be affected by a problem that we're personally affected by. And I think when you have this drive and this passion for a specific problem, this is what's memorable. This is what will get you into med school or graduate school. These are the stories that is what's most important. And that's kind of the environment we're trying to foster here at YSI. Not doing the biggest, craziest projects that you can think of that will get you the most revenue, but we're trying to really unleash these crazy geniuses who won't sacrifice a return on humanity for a return on investment. And so what are the key steps to becoming a change maker? Crystal and I are going to talk about really finding a purpose and kind of the tricks that we've used, in our past. And we see this theme really prevalent among a lot of our friends who do science fairs. So, the first thing I think is important is find a hard problem that you're deeply passionate about. My friend Ellie from Kenya once said at this talk we're both at, he said, start with empathy and then learn to speak courage fluently. This really spoke to me. And I think this is what really drives a good scientist or a good anything for that matter. I think this is crucial when you're dealing with grassroots movements or activism or STEM research. I think this is the key to really being just a researcher to being a great researcher. And it is really empathy that fuels us, but most importantly, allows for an individual to, create and make this world a more equitable and a more sustainable place. And so that would be the first step, to really find a problem that you're passionate about and take it to the furthest you can, really get, your hands dirty in it. And so the second, real problem, and I think is the second most important step, is who can we approach to make our ideas a reality? I know this is a big issue in STEM. I've had this issue where, you cannot wait for purpose to come to you because it just doesn't come to people waiting at the starting blocks. I've sent hundreds of emails, and in my Alzheimer's research, I sent 683 emails to try to get into a lab. I started in Montreal. I reached Ottawa, Toronto, and then I'm thinking is this really worth it? And I found myself emailing researchers in Miami, and then I realized, I got a problem. I got to stop. But it's really, you can fast track that workflow if you talk to people who can really evoke that change. And from what I've seen, there's two key people that you can evoke activism or grassroots movements or research projects. One, people who are leaders in the private sector, so big CEOs or researchers in the private sector, or two, government officials. These two people are in places to evoke and facilitate your change that you want to see in the world the fastest. And so I think that's key. And it's kind of hard when you're dealing with STEM projects, really hard applied sciences, where, like I said, you really need to find a researcher who's doing the same exact thing with the same kind of passions that you are. Instead of cold email, I know this is a popular thing where you're probably suggested by your teachers to do is hard cold email a bunch of people. That's going to get you ignored. Trust me, I've been there. I think finding a researcher is specifically aligned with your passions that you figured out in step one, and you writing this heartfelt email describing why you're passionate about it. You have a research proposal. That's going to increase your odds of being accepted into his lab 100%. So I think these are the people who have the most direct exposure to facilitate the change that you're both passionate about and you want to see in this world. Lastly is communication. I think the step is the most important. I always think that the work of good science is not done until communicated with empathy and compassion. Okay, so what does that mean? I think if you can explain it, and I think this is why science fairs are really important in developing this skill. If you can explain this to your project to a 5-year-old and a Nobel laureate, that's when you've reached it. That's your goal. I've had the ability to do both. And I would go into these insanely deep, talks about how I synthesize my carbon dots or whatnot with my, detection tool for Alzheimer's disease. And then I would tell a 5-year-old, you can pee out Alzheimer's in my project. I think no matter how in depth you go, this is the key, until good science. And I think this is really important. We're seeing this in the world today where, especially with our neighbors down south, with the previous president, science was not being respected with the highest of regards. And you can see what that does to society. You look at Scandinavian countries, and you can see when science is being held in influencing public policy, society can be a way better place. You look at places like Taiwan, how they dealt with the pandemic. I had the pleasure of meeting the vice president of Taiwan, and I found out that he was a physician, he was a doctor, and so was the president. And you kind of look back and you see how they don't have any cases for the past months. We're talking months. And they dealt with it so much better than the rest of the world. And so I think communicating science is the most important, whether it be a diagnosis for a neurodegenerative disease or you're trying to fix plastic pollution in the rivers of Bali. People want to listen to a person who has access to society in a way others don't. I think having a personal connection, when communicating an idea is what's most crucial. For me, it was the diagnosis of vascular dementia of my grandfather. And I learned coming home that, 1 in 3 seniors will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia in their lifetime. And that really inspired me to kind of work and try to find a solution to this, disease that affects many other people. And this kind of relates to what Maya Angelou's famous quote is, where she stated, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This is essential when you're communicating your ideas to the public or fellow researchers or activists. So these are the 3 steps which are primordial in becoming a change maker. And to catapult you in the right direction, I urge you all to ask yourself 4 questions that I always ask myself, whether it be a science fair project or trying to get an initiative off the ground. So what are these 4 questions, you may ask? What is your kryptonite? What are your shortcomings? What are your biases? What are your privileges? I think it's easy to first see how you're going to do it and solve a problem when you know your shortcomings. What are the skills you don't have? What skills should I learn online? What are the skills that I need a PI? Who do I need a researcher to teach me these skills? Who do I need on my team? Once you figure out what you're lacking, it becomes a lot easier to figure out what you need to know to solve your goals. That brings me to the second question you should ask yourself is, who are your allies? Who are your co-travelers on your journey? Who are the people who will complement your shortcomings and skills and experiences? Who are the stakeholders that you want to co-design with? This can help complement what skills you don't have, because it's a lot easier to work together and fast track your workflow. I think that's a really important question to ask yourself. The third question is, how do you play the game while trying to change it? I think it's important for Gen Zers in this crazy world. There's a lot of problems around us. This is not a perfect world. And so if we just copy what, previous generations have done, we're just going to end up in the same place we are now. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really liking the society we're in now. And so I think playing the game while trying to change it is crucial, and what will make your kind of impact on the world so much greater. And a lot of people respect you for it. The last question is, what can I do right now to start creating what I want? So how do you activate all the levers you can? So what does that mean? It's kind of confusing, but not just your studies. Like, what are you studying at school? What is your career? Are you, do you have a side job? What are your startups? Also your side projects, your volunteering, your giving, your investing, your purchasing, your friends or family. What resources do you have to really get started on the project you want? Let's say you realize, after asking yourself the first question, I don't have a lab, I don't have expertise in nanoparticle synthesis. Once you know that, you can realize, who can I ask? Or maybe I have a family friend who's a researcher synthesizing nanoparticles, or maybe that person knows a researcher who's synthesizing nanoparticles. These 4 questions is how I kind of like to fast track my progress when really working on stuff that has not been done before. And when you're doing stuff that's not been done before, you need to have a different path. Like that's what I find interesting, is when you Just listen to people like Tasnia or incredible researchers like Cyril or Crystal or Diksha. Their paths are not like any other person I've seen. And I think that's what makes their research even more inspiring. The last note I want to leave you on before I give it off to Crystal is it is priceless to meander now while in high school and university and kind of figure the things you like right now and then compound that knowledge for the next 40, 50 years instead of, doing the status quo, going to school, graduating, getting some nice comfy corporate job and realizing later on that that's not something you want to do. It's really truly priceless to meander right now. And in the end, being a change maker, what does it mean? It means being someone who's able to inspire others, be able to adapt to changes around you and be the change that you want to see in the world. And considering the year we've all had of having to adapt, you're already a change maker deep down. So I'd like to pass it on to Crystal, who will finish off the workshop and see how you can, put your heart into it.
Sounds good. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to put more emphasis on, how do you get started when you might have some curiosity or some sort of research question, or even help to get that research question off the ground once you figure out what your limits are. And one of the most important things that I found was that you have to put some heart into what you want to do. You need to be enthusiastic, devoted, keen to learn more. And you can only do that if you're interested in the field that you're studying. Better yet, love the field. But how do you know what you love? How do you know what you should be spending your time on in the labs and the libraries? I can't necessarily answer that for you. And the only way is through time and research. So one of the first very important questions I'm going to ask you is to first research yourself. Connecting to Sean's empathy point, it's crucial to develop empathy for issues that may not be relevant to your own life. But developing empathy is placing your feet into the shoes of those that face the issues and seeing their world from a whole new perspective without a bias. There's such hard skills to learn for humans, but once you get a glimpse of that issue from their perspective, your heart can get pulled right into it and nothing can stop you, and that'll just devote you into doing all the research that you can. So when you research yourself, you need to find your soft spots, find topics that pull you in and compel you to make a change. Find an issue so irritating that it bothers you to stay still. That's one of the most important things that I found doing my research and something that really compels me to find a passion. And now my next point, researching the actual topic that you find once you figure out what you love. Sean, next slide, please. Thank you. So where can you even start? It could be as simple as what subject you enjoy the most in class right now. From then, you can research current events or global issues around this topic. An idea is not going to come to you, not floating in your mind, as Sean has mentioned. You must do your reading. That's something, it's kind of inevitable. It's kind of like being an entrepreneur. You're trying to find what people want. You need to find a hole in the system, something to improve on. You need to basically research your market and see if there's something that you can add or improve on, whether it be diagnostic methods or completely reinventing certain systems. Where can you really start? So if you're stuck and if your motivation for research is getting really low, start somewhere. It doesn't matter where. Pick a decent topic and just keep going. And you may not connect with what you're researching, but as we all know, after we answer one question, only hundreds more will follow. And the least you'll get out of doing that research is learning how to properly format a paper and make connections and maybe possibly even going places and maybe even falling in love with the subject that you're looking into or find new subjects from that one. And the only way you can get your mind to problem solve about issues is to have an archive of information. Again, my emphasis on reading and doing your market research and things like that. It's like adding cogs to your brain. You can't produce much work if you only have 2 cogs. And if you want to understand more and make connections that you never even saw, you've got to add more knowledge to your mind. And so just my biggest takeaway piece is that if you want to succeed and actually enjoy what you're doing, is to firstly research yourself and then research your topic as much as you can. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. So again, this is probably our fourth ad. It's not really an ad. You can connect with us through our website. We're, like I said, next week, I'm really excited. We're going to be opening a Slack so we can really foster this online community while, the world is still online. And I'm super excited about it, where you can connect with other people, find other people who are passionate about the same problem. So you can go on to, do your own research projects. But really, in the next few months, we're going to be opening up the application process to our incubator and to the fellowship. So a lot of exciting opportunities are to come. We're really excited for what's next, and we hope you can listen to our second day, the last day of our conference on March 7th at 3 p.m. EST. And we really enjoyed everyone coming today. Again, thank you to Tasnia for giving us such an insightful talk, and I'm super excited to rewatch it because I'm going to learn more and more each time I watch it. And so that's pretty much it for today's conference.